शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभुत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न च सङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेयः चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कारचित्तानि नाम न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमे न तेजो न वायु चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा.
A very good morning and a warm welcome to all delegates joining us today on this online platform for Week 19, Build Bharat, Safe and Secure India, a 25-week series which has commenced from 26th of July 2020, a purely knowledge-sharing webinar series successfully progressing each Sunday. Our entire team of East Core Group is grateful for all your interest, support, and time for connecting with us today. We are sure you will find the information valuable shared here. In case of any queries or questions arising during the webinar, we request you to please type in using the Q&A option or raise hand. During the webinar, also keep an eye on the chat section for links to view our previous sessions and to join our ECG community for newsletters, case studies, pocket guides, advisories on fire, safety, security. We have our group CEO, Mr. Hemant Khadse, who will lead this session. Let us proceed the session with a small prayer.
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Come on, chant this one. असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Thank you. Just give me a thumbs up in case you are able to hear my voice very clearly. Give me thumbs up. So at least I know that you are able to hear me very clearly. Okay, very good. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Build Bharat week 19 session. Time had just passed. We never know when we started, and we have reached to the level of week 19. It's really a remarkable moment for all of us, including our entire team and the audience who is there with us for most of this time that we have passed. I believe the sequence that we have followed is really a very, very planned way. Although some of you could not initially figured it out how this series is going to be, whether it is going to be adding value to me or not, whether it is beneficial to me or not, what is the content. So a lot of inquisitiveness, a lot of curiosity were existing earlier, but slowly when people started showing up and participating voluntarily, I think more or less they got a clarity that this is really a piece that we have developed, which is going to clear your fundamental concept, opening up your mind, opening up your thoughts, and looking at this concept, fire safety and security, as a holistic way, and at the same time, in terms of technicalities, I would say 360-degree way, because this subject is too vast, is so detailed that, as I mentioned to you, I always look at that way, that if my experience in this industry is 27 years, I probably have filled the gap of 27% only. Still, there is a open gap of 73%, which is still there, and I don't think so. This life is going to be uh, sufficient to reach to that 100% level, because every day this knowledge is going laterally, at the same time going in deeper way. It is up to you, how do you want to restrict yourself, how deep you want to go, how laterally you want to go. But our effort, our sincere effort, was to bring the basic fundamental knowledge, targeting the customers, targeting the end users, targeting the business owners, facility owners, because unless until the people who are the custodian of the system are well aware, their concepts are clear, there is nothing that the chain will go further. There is no community that can get developed, there is no society that can be safe and secure. So our motive was to help this community specifically, and I'm sure we are successful. But all I wanted to now ask, since we are going to be ending up this series in the month of January first week, that is going to be the first week of the new year, which is going to be coming with a new hope, new aspirations. I'm sure we will be taking our worst behind, and that's the reason we want to actually restart the new way of thinking, and we are going to end this Build Bharat series in the first week of January. And then our plan is to help those serious people, those sincere people, those who want to go deeper. Not necessarily that everyone wants to swim along, that is absolutely fine, as long as they can have takeaway of this 25-week that we have done, which is opening up their mind, as I mentioned, giving a thought, giving a direction to um, look at their system in a new way. I think our purpose will be served, but at the same time, we do not want to restrict ourselves to end there, and our journey wants to be uh, continued in helping those people who want to take this journey ahead. So send us the your ideas, send us your wish list, because we are going to launch some new interesting deeper technical programs January 2020 onwards. And I would like to have your minds, I would like to have your thoughts before we launch and before we announce that programs in the coming week. So that's the first submission that I wanted to have before we begin today's session. And secondly, now since we are going to be changing our gears, we are going to be on a last stage of this concept that we have come up with, fire safety security. Involve maximum people, involve your team, involve your colleagues, involve your friends, wherever you find that people need to be aware. These are the gap people have, and as I mentioned to you, there are many people who have got a very strong domain in one area. Maybe it could be fire or safety or security, but maybe not necessarily they get an exposure on other side of it, like security or safety could be the weak link for them. So idea is to uh, give them an touch base about this concept at each area, and we are going to be summing up this series on 25th on 25 week, which is the last wherein we will have a live Q&A session on all the sessions that we had so far, and we would like to clarify your doubts. You would like to clarify your thought process with the capacity that we have. So that's a second submission that I wanted to have for all of you, and help us this community by only connecting with more friends, connecting with more team colleagues, because that's a list that we can do about it. Yeah. So welcome back again with this note. Let me just start. This is what the topic that we had so far covered in first phase of this Build Bharat series, where we fundamentally try to cover each aspect of it in a uh, brief way, but focusing that particular topic in a deeper way. So starting with how this safety and security means to you, what are the course standards are available, how this engineering mind can be developed, how this engineering process can be developed, how it is going to complement your entire strategy as such, and ultimately we looked at it that your entire basis of design is your strategy. Unless until people are strategic about their protecting their life and property well, they will not be able to successfully in implementing the system. Doesn't matter they spend lakhs and crores of money on getting that system, but strategy has to be very very clear at the planning level, so that they can mitigate the risk, and any kind of a eventuality that can happen, they are prepared for it. So these are the session that we had covered. Last two or three sessions we are trying to cover on the last leg of the project cycle, which is testing, commissioning, and how you take over the systems. And now we are going to touch upon operation and maintenance of systems, how this pi will be very very important for customer, for business owner, for system owners, because this is the most weakest link. And I will take you through how this is going to be critical for all the users, and how you can strengthen your this element, so that your system can be complementing to your facility. Going forward, next week onwards, we will also connect with you in terms of how training can actually benefit, because training is also part of operations. But then I want to specifically talk about training in a next week, specifically because training is a ritual. It is more to do with the activity people consider as a paper activity, but then there are missing links on both the end, the trainer and the trainees. And that's the reason the concept or the topic fire safety security is very boring, because there are no good trainers available in the industry. The trainers are not able to capture what trainees are actually wanting for, what they are looking for. That's when this becomes a boring topic. So we'll cover that in the next week. Then we'll cover about audit, documentation, how you maintain your documentation, and then lastly we'll talk about how do you take your journey to a level which is excellence and sustainable. So that's a direction for our next 5 weeks typically. uh, just for information, I think Mr. Reddy is always inquisitive about what's next. So that's when I wanted to bring it to his notice. This is what we are trying to cover. We had asked some questions. I don't know whether some people could give a thought. If not, let me recollect those questions again for you. When we looked at uh, the the commissioning phase as such, or takeover phase, first question: what are the records that you are maintaining for your installed systems? What records are you able to figure it out? Do you have those records? How do you maintain those records? How frequently you do the testing of your systems? And testing is not something that activity which always uh, happen only at the time of commissioning, but it is always a continuous journey. So how frequently are you able to do it? What's your need for a facility to do recommissioning or retro commissioning? This is again a new concept that we discussed last time, that any facility which never commissioned, that needs to be commissioned again, and it can be retro commission. And again, recommissioning, that means it needs any change in terms of system architecture, design changes, installation changes, it needs recommissioning. And that's how you need to uh, plug those gaps in terms of system architecture, system performance. And that's how this commissioning is an activity which is also very crucial for users. So I would like to hear from you in case somebody wants to share his experience or her experience in terms of journey so far till now, what we have learned, or specifically on these three questions. In case somebody wants to share, they can raise the hand. I will unmute them, and then maybe we can go to the next part of it. So forum is open for all of you in case somebody wants to share the experience or talk about this question that you can see on the screen, so that we don't leave any garbage, we don't leave any open minds, we are crystal clear, and the journey is going to be continued. So anyone would like to talk about it? I can't see any hand. I'm encouraging you to speak, because unless until you ask questions, yeah, Mr. Singh is always ready to ask question. Yes, Mr. Singh, good morning. बोलिए Mr. Singh. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Now you can speak. Please go ahead.
आपका जो थर्ड है, डज योर फैसिलिटी नीड्स RACX एंड RCX? व्हाट इज दिस RACX एंड RCX?
ओके, आप शायद लास्ट वीक सेशन देखिए, हमने लास्ट टाइम इसके बारे में बात करी, एंड
जी
कमीशनिंग करना होता है।
हाँ
कमीशनिंग अपना कंसेप्ट क्या होता है कि भाई हैंड ओवर करते हैं, कमीशनिंग हमारा एक लास्ट स्टेज हमारा वो करते हैं
जी
नेक्स्ट मिलेगा। इसका एक्चुअली कंसेप्ट होता है इतना पॉपुलर है, कोई लोग कमीशनिंग बोलते हैं। कमीशनिंग बोले तो स्टार्टिंग विद डिजाइन होता है, हमारा डिजाइन क्या है, हमारा इंस्टॉलेशन कैसा होगा, हमारा लास्ट फाइनल टेस्टिंग कैसा होगा, और वो टेस्ट के बाद उसको अपना कर पा रहे हैं।
जी
ये एक चीज है। सेकंड now there are
It's expected that you try and get some control. In that, if you get a wicket, it's fine.
आपने कभी
But there are also other times where you need wickets
जी
and you want your bowler to act in that way, and that's where the test bowler in
मतलब
the
आपको वापस
needs
जाना पड़ेगा, आपका डिजाइन
to
क्या था,
come in where you take calls, you make place fields where you have to bowl in an attacking way. But at other times,
हाँ सुन रहा हूँ, मैं सुन रहा हूँ।
राइट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच आपको करना है।
हेमंत सर, आपका वॉइस बहुत लो आ रहा है।
ओके, so is it better now?
हाँ सर, यस सर।
That is called a recommissioning. And then retro commissioning माने basically आपके पास कोई old installation है and you never commissioned it.
ओके
आपने कभी commission किया नहीं उसको, देखा भी नहीं क्या है, वो पड़ा है चल रहा है, अपना वही खाता चल रहा है, अपना कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ले रहा है पैसा, that's about it. इसकी वजह से retro commissioning, that means आपको
पूरा सिस्टम रिडिजाइन करना है, रीइंस्टॉल करना है एंड राइट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच आपको रेट्रो कमिश्निंग. So this is the concept of
Sir, excuse me. This is not renovation, na? This is not a renovation.
no expansion renovation ये तो चलते रहेगा, बट इसमें आपको फिर रिकमिशनिंग आएगा. जो मैंने बोला आपको फर्स्ट रिकमिशनिंग, दैट इज व्हाट विल कम व्हेन यू एक्सपांड योर सिस्टम, व्हेन यू एक्सटेंड योर सिस्टम. आप रिनोवेट करेंगे तो रिकमिशनिंग करना पड़ेगा.
जी.
दैट इज व्हाट यू नीड टू लिंक टू टर्म टुगेदर.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul? Can you unmute Mr. Paul?
So I was only I want to discuss only that background sound was coming some distraction.
I cannot hear you. Can you just speak a little louder?
There was some background sound which was coming very loud, so I just want to say that only.
Okay. So you wanted to put a comment that background voice was coming in. Okay, fine. Okay, so good that we had one question. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, actually, when you were speaking about RECX and RCX, na, so there was a lot of noise in the background, so I was not able to listen anything.
Okay,
So,
you want to repeat again?
sir, RECX and RCX, you are explaining something about these two terms, na? So there are a lot of background noise, so I was
So
not
should
able
I
to
repeat again?
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Okay, so basically what I mentioned to you, English is okay or Hindi you want?
Any language, sir.
So basically what I clarified to Mr. Singh is that there is a first, let us understand what is commissioning.
Okay.
So I tried to explain the concept of commissioning is something that is a broader, which originates from your design stage only. It is
Okay,
not
sir.
only at the time of testing. Probably people try to confuse or consider that testing के साथ ही commissioning होता है, and that's how we end the responsibility there. But commissioning is, it starts with what? Design planning stage.
Okay.
So what is your design intent? What is your system performance objectives? What is your design criteria? What is your integration requirement? So entire thing is actually conceived at the planning stage. Accordingly, you install, you put together all your component together, you test that entire system as a system together, and then you take over that system, you operate, you start operating it, and you build your plan as a maintenance plan.
Right,
So
sir.
this is the complete cycle or a stage called commissioning.
Okay, sir.
Okay? So when you are fulfilling your entire elements put together, आपके पास अच्छा डिजाइन है, प्लानिंग किया हुआ है, इंटीग्रेशन रिक्वायरमेंट स्पेसिफाई क्लियर किए हुए, आपका इंस्टॉलेशन सही तरह से हुआ है, आपने टेस्ट किया है, वेरीफाई किया, वैलिडेट किया है कि आपने क्या सोचा था, क्या समझा था और वो एक्चुअली है क्या.
Okay,
And
sir.
then you are able to also maintain that system well, regularly, and that is how you commission that system. Okay, it could be
Okay,
any,
sir.
it could be security system, safety system, fire system, whatever it may be.
Okay, sir.
ये first fundamental आपको करना है. Second, रिकमिशनिंग और रेट्रो कमिशनिंग ये कहाँ आते हैं? जब आपने एक्सपांड किया कोई सिस्टम, कोई फ्लोर आपने एक्सटेंड किया, आपने कोई रिनोवेट किया कोई एरिया, तो आपको दोबारा रिकमिशनिंग करना पड़ेगा.
Okay.
So again, you have to see that whether it is any deviation in the design intent,
Mhm.
whether your installation is adequate or not, how you are going to test it, whether are you integrating that into your maintenance plan, आपने वो
Okay.
जोड़ा है कि नहीं आपके सिस्टम के साथ, वो सब recommissioning में आता है. Okay?
Okay, sir.
And then
Okay.
retro commissioning means आपने कभी commission किया ही नहीं, आपने
Mhm.
सोचा ही नहीं, आपके पास डिजाइन भी नहीं है, आपको मालूम ही नहीं है सिस्टम पड़ा है, 10
हाँ
साल
जी.
से पड़ा है ना, we don't know what it is, just like a you're only signing the maintenance bills or maintenance contract, but
Okay.
it never have been commissioned technically. So उसको
Okay.
retro commissioning बोले जाते हैं. So उसमें आपको
Okay.
वापस देखना है कि what was your building design, what is the code that you followed, what are the integration requirement, how many times you tested the systems, whether there is any Lucana in testing it, and then what is your maintenance program plan, and that is how you do the retro commissioning of your system.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir. Yeah. Fine, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good. So I'm lowering the hand. So in case anybody wants still have any questions, you can raise. I will move on to the topic, today's topic. Um, am I audible, Afrin? Because then I was using microphone in between, but then in that case it's going to be one way. I will not be able to hear it. Okay, fine. Is there any question that we have? Distracting sound. Sorry, your voice is not audible. Okay. Um, so let me just start this session today with the topic that we have decided: operation and maintenance. Very, very common word, very close to the project people who are involved in this kind of activity, but fundamentally थोड़ा concept clear करते हैं. Let us clear this concept fundamentally, so that we can have a totally new look towards looking at it, how we are going to do it, your maintenance and operation practices in your facility. So if you look at it, any facility, in fact, I remember I was doing one of the audit for one of the very busy high rise commercial office in Bombay, and the facility head, I asked him the question, how many times you get a complaint from the occupant, because there are 200 plus big offices, MNC clients who are operating from that building. It's a 45-story building. How many times you get the complaints from the occupants when your elevator is not working? He said every day, at least major, minor, whatever it is. We can't afford to have a elevator stoppage or maintenance or any breakdown, not more than 10 minutes. How many times you get a complaint from HVAC? He said most of the time. People do not want to have any discomfort the moment your HVAC system is down. Immediately I get a call that my AC is not working by this thing. Then my third question was strange to him. I said, how many times you get a complaint from your occupant that your fire alarm panel is off, or your fire system or your pump are in manual mode, or it is not working? He said, never. In last 8 years, we never got any single complaint from any occupant in this facility, from 200 occupants, about the breakdown of fire system. I mean, this is really strange. I mean, it's really strange for many of you right now here, sitting here, because reason is very simple. Elevator system, HVAC system or lighting system is going to touch your life on daily basis, because you are going to be connected with that system on a daily basis the moment you are in the office. However, fire system will never come in your play in your lifetime, unless some incident happen. And that's the reason we don't give any importance whether it working or not, whether it is functional or not, whether it is healthy or not. We don't bother. And it's not a blame, it's a human tendency. Anything that you are going to play with your thing on a daily basis, which is connected to your heart, soul, you will be bothering more. And specifically comfort, right? It gives you comfort, convenience, immediately person can get attracted. fire system, security system will not give you convenience. It is going to give you inconvenience sometimes, right? If the sounder is going to give you buzz, it is going to give you inconvenience because it may be false alarm. Maybe your turnstile or boom barrier which is not working, it is going to give you inconvenience because you're not able to come inside. Access control. So anything that system that is not going to bother your daily life, you will not take it seriously, isn't it? And that's a human rule. So that's reason the facility owners have to change their mindset also to deal with that situation. How do you ensure that people also get involved on a daily basis? If not daily basis, at least somewhere when they see any kind of any kind of a non-compliance or anything that can affect to their life in long run or in case of accident. In fact, in yesterday's webinar also, somebody asked a question. I don't know whether he's there today or not, but then he said, I've broken my head in convincing the client about upgrading the system, but he never listened to me. And then I had to give up. And it's a pain game. It's a pain game because it's not an easy life for people like us also to convince end users to adapt the best practices, specifically operation and maintenance, because it involves efforts. It takes pain to maintain certain system that you own, and it is applicable in your daily life also, because if you get your oven at your home or maybe a refrigerator at home or any expensive stuff at home, usually once you have it, you fit and forget. You have a mindset that okay, once I have it, I don't have to look at it. But it's not a case when it comes to system, and specifically building systems. It becomes your liability the moment you own it from that day. And that's the reason I clarified again the commissioning part, where commissioning ends where it starts with a new beginning, which is operation and maintenance plan. The moment you have operation and maintenance plan at the handing over stage, at the takeover stage, that means you are mentally prepared, physically prepared to maintain that system where you are taking the liability of the system that you own. And that's how then life cycle actually can fetch value to your entire proposition. So it is very important that we need to understand the takeover that you do from any contractor or integrator, from any OEM, after spending capex amount on from your organization. Make sure that you are thorough with what you are going to get. And irony is here is that I wanted to emphasize here, based on my experience, people do not get into the depth of what they are going to get. They will only have merely a ritual saying that I spent money, I have a purchase order, I have an acceptance of purchase order, I have a completion certificate. That means I'm happy. Whatever I have got, it will work. It is not the case. It is you who are to ensure what you're going to get is validated, verified by you in the form of various documents, in the form of various tests that you are going to do. At many times when you start taking out the systems, you know that, okay, I never thought this. I had imagined maybe a different plant altogether. Now what I got is different plant altogether. But when you start comparing that at the time of takeover, then only you realize what is a gap. And it will happen many times. What you conceive may not what you get. Because if the project cycle is probably longer, you will definitely get a lot of surprises. That's the reason it is important. Doesn't matter, people keep on changing, department will keep changing, the documents should not change. Somebody at the takeover stage should be able to verify what was decided 1 year back when you got the system in. What was the basis? What was the strategy behind it? What is the purpose of that system? What is the benefit that this facility will get out of the systems? When you start looking at it, then you are able to ensure that what you got is right. You need to also involve yourself in demonstrating the system. so that you are able to compare with the design objectives. You are able to implement that, and then you are able to operate and maintain in future. Documentation, of course, we are going to cover separately, but all I wanted to highlight here, just for understanding purpose, that system specifically, equipment could be one, extinguishers is an equipment one, but when it's a system which is involving multiple equipments, design, intent, commissioning, installation, so as a whole system altogether, as built documentation is the biggest gap in the industry. First of all, let me also tell you what is as built layout. There are different stages of drawing that you can come across. One is a concept drawing, where a consultant or architect gives you a layout which is helping to understand what is the concept of the system. Then it comes to the uh, tender drawings. Then it comes to the shop drawings, or GFC drawing, goods for construction shop drawings, and then comes to your as built layout. So there is a difference between shop drawings and as built layout, because by that time you start doing installation, you'll not be able to follow exactly what is there in the piece of paper. The drawing must be modified exactly in total with your installations. And there are many facilities sitting here in this world, wherein they have no documentation available. It could be 8-year-old system, it could be 18-year-old system. However, they do not have any documentation to justify what was the design and what is the true picture of installations on the piece of paper. So you have to invest on as-built layouts. You have to make sure that it is done from the system integrator, it is sign off from all the stakeholders, so that it becomes your part of your maintenance and operation part of it. The manual, it is not something that you get a manual with the catalogs and fancy brochures of the OEM and put together and it becomes manual. Manual is a very, very detailed term. It is a very broad term. It involves a lot of documentation. Of course, we'll cover that, but all I wanted to highlight here is that anything and everything that is related to that system that needs your attention, that needs your information to be part of your system operation and maintenance, should be included in the form of manual. There are many installations where people don't know their pump capacity. People don't know their motor rating. They don't know what's the performance curve of the pump that they have. If you have security system, they don't know what is a camera feature, whether it's analog or whether it's a IP camera. What is the duration of the recording that the system can have? So there are many technicalities attached to every system, be it fire or be it security. Fire is of course more, security is little less, but it is important when you own the systems, you have a thorough information related to the system that you have in the form of manual. Hydraulic calculations. I mean, this is a very, very good term. I think I have touched upon this during the design session that we covered. But imagine you have a sprinkler systems protecting a plant or a building or a high-rise occupancy. Hydraulic calculation is the authentic and a systematic tool which demonstrates that your performance of sprinkler system is in line with the codes and compliance. Let me simplify what is this hydraulic calculation is all about. Now, if you have a, say, 20-story building and you have a lot of offices every floor, maybe in the basement you have got a pump house where sprinkler pump is discharging the water, throwing up to the 20th floor. Now, when you have a sprinkler outlet on the 20th floor at the diagonally opposite office area, what is that sprinkler discharging the water flow? What is the pressure that is delivering it? Whether your piping is adequate or not will be authenticated in the form of calculations. And it is given in the codes that you have to have hydraulic calculations performed for each installations during design and during commissioning stage, both. Because as I mentioned to you, there will be some variance in the form of shop drawings. So you need to do both at the design planning stage and at the commissioning stage. But today there are many installations where sprinkler system is visually can be seen, but when we ask the question, what is the flow that you are going to get? They said, no, you apply pressure gauge. You can't have a pressure gauge to check what is the sprinkler remotest pressure that you can get. That's not an authentic way, or that's not an engineered way to measure the pressure. This is the engineering way. Always and always perform hydraulic calculations. Even though you have a system which is pretty old, you still can perform calculations and you can authenticate your system, and that's how you're part of your retro commissioning. Test papers, how these fire doors have been tested. I mean, you can see fire door is a very, very common. I think we have Mr. Ashok, expert here. He can talk about it. But fire doors is the one that is a gray area, that any facility, how do you ensure that this door is still rated as 30-minute or 2 hour? There is no way that you can authenticate. So testing documentation is only one way that you can rely upon, and the embossing that you get on the fire door, that will only authenticate that this door is rated for 2 hour, which is going to meet your requirement. But if you don't have the test paper, if you don't have that documentation requirement, or if you don't ask from the OEM during the commissioning stage, and you take over the system assuming that it is going to be 2 hour because it is there in the purchase order, then it's a mistake. So make sure that you insist the test paper, the manufacturer data sheet, which is going to be proving that it has got a right listings and approvals, like ULFM. It's a very common thing. But do you refer only the fancy brochures which will also talk about that this product is UL listed and FM approved? No. Maybe they have got 10 range and one product is UL listed, but they will have one catalogs for all 10, and you assume that all rest of the 9 also has got ULFM. And it has happened with many customers, and I brought it to the notice, sir, this catalog is for 10 products. They have got only one product which is listed and approved. So how do you authenticate that? You just go to the ul.com, fmglobal.com, authenticate that, ask for a certificate. So there are many, many ways. I don't know, get into it, but all I wanted to tell you about is that authenticate, validate all the documentation that you are going to own, that you're going to pay for. And this is what your stage were called takeover stage. Very important phase, because if you make mistakes at this stage, you will not be able to rectify that in future, or it takes a lot of time, money, efforts to recover that gap. Clear? Any questions? Please ask in between, so I may miss out the Q&A in between. So, but do not assume any opinion. Please ask for it. Now, O&M phase. What is the O&M phase, operation and maintenance phase for facility owners, is important to take into consideration. One is a compliance. That's the basic and fundamental and most critical component of the entire O&M phase. Why? Because when you are having a system that to protecting life and property, there is a statutory angle towards it. There is a regulation that is going to watch this performance. So compliance is the one that is most important, and it needs to be added in this O&M phase. Many installations, I mean, you can see that now in the newspaper every day coming in, there are hospitals now. When the fire happens in a hospital, then all of a sudden the authority starts writing the letters to all the hospitals in that particular city saying that make sure that you have fire NOC. But why do you have to wait for a fire to happen in the hospital and then you ask for NOC? It is a prime responsibility, accountability of every facility owner to have an NOC, correct? It's a statutory requirement. It need not to be asked when a neighboring hospital has got a fire. it's a fundamental right and it's a fundamental duty to comply the law of the land. Do not deviate that. Do not compromise on those compliances. And many institutions, and specifically for fire, I can see that this is the gap. I'm just highlighting the uh, fundamentals so that you know how and where we are standing. This is not something that you might be hearing common, but I can tell you there are many installations, there are many projects, maybe sitting with a very global name entity, but they are lacking in the form of compliance. So please invest time, please invest your resources in getting that compliance done, because unless until you are able to comply at the operation and maintenance stage, when you start taking over the new installation specifically, you are not able to be meeting your statutory requirement. And question may come that, sir, I'm having office building or maybe plant since last 20 years. How do I figure out my compliances? So you need to ask. You need to go to the compliance level. Of course, you can't knock the door and then get into a situation where you don't have an answer. But make sure that you engage the right resources to ensure that you are not non-compliant. Documentation requirement, maybe it is environmental clearance, maybe it is the pollution control by clearance, maybe it is local fire officers, maybe it is local police, maybe it is municipal corporations approval, anything that is related to the statutory requirement or government body or regulations. And India is flooded with a lot of compliances, all I can tell you. There are hundreds of rules and regulations applicable, but we have to accept the fact that we have to live in the same environment, and we can't run away from that compliances. You have to invest time, money, effort, whatever it is. So figure out the way, and there is a way. Even though your plant or building is going to be 20-year plus, I'm sure there is a way that you can get your statutory obligations fulfilled. And now, in fact, there is a lot of transparency in the whole mechanism that you are observing it. So I'm sure you'll be able to find the way and bridge the gap of compliances as such. Then comes your records, documentation. Of course, as I mentioned to you, we are going to spend next week, we are going to focus on this particular thing, which is the documentation requirement, records. How many records you should ask for? What are those documents which are very, very critical at the operation and maintenance stage, without which you cannot start, and you should not start. There is no point in taking over the system wherein you don't have a base, where you don't know where it is coming from. So make sure that you have a as detailed documentation availability, ask for it and get it, so that you are able to manage your O&M phase very clearly with a very clear state of mind, and there is no hesitation, there is no confusion. What pump that I have, what water tank capacity that I have, what is a equipment that I'm going to own. There is absolutely crystal clarity. And I always ask many people during the audit that I do that, tell me what system equipment that you have, what approvals this particular equipment has got. Basic ISI mark also they are not able to sure. I don't know, it is coming from this vendor. I don't know whether it's ISI approved or not. We have to check. And that too after 4 or 5 years, I'm asking this question. And the same person who has taken over the system. So it's not again the capacity issue or a competency issue. It is the clarity issue. people do not have the ability to understand what their responsibility is. The moment they are very clear about their responsibility, they will get into the level of understanding what is the documentation requirement, from where I can get this documentation, how do I get this documentation, how do I make sure that it is available, accessible for my maintenance team. Yeah, so that's a very important phase that I wanted to talk about it. Then create a plan. Like suppose you are a greenfield facility, now you are involved in the operation team and you are part of this operation team. Start with creating a plan. And when I say plan, it's a program, O&M program, be it your fire system or a security system, how this system will be maintained, what is the frequency that I'm going to be attached with, what is the code that I'm going to be following to practice the maintenance, what is the capacity that I'm going to be looking at to support the integrator who will be taking care of this, how frequently he's going to be visiting my facility, what are the documentation that he's going to presenting it to me when he finishes his monthly or quarterly or annually visit. There are I can tell you classic example where there was a basement and the ventilation system was installed 7 years back, and then when I did the audit, I asked him that what is the basis of your ventilation system that you have. They said there is no basis, we have got this purchase order, he has installed it, and that's about it. Then they tried to figure out what is the documentation available. Then they found out some technical data sheets wherein they could figure out what is the fan capacity. They could also understand what is the panel integration requirement. Then they also understood that this panel has got a feature wherein they can connect the interface from the fire alarm panel and they can make it automatic, and that's how they need to attach with. I said how frequently these people are supposed to visit. They said we have an agreement, we have negotiated an agreement, and then after that we decided that we'll have only annual visit. Then in that visit, what is the responsibility and verification document that they are going to give? No, they are going to give me this paper and they are going to check the system. We are going to check I said, on what basis? Is there any specific code or practices that you are going to follow in witnessing that ventilation system that you own? And it is a very, very critical system, because in case any fire occurs in a basement and that to a car park area, your ventilation system is the one that will actually take the smoke out, not propagate the smoke to get into the ground level through the openings, and people inside the car park will not have any difficulty in evacuating the car park area. Very, very critical. And smoke kills people, that is what we know. So there were gaps, and then I brought to this notice that you don't have a plan. And he accepted that yes, we have no plan in terms of this system management, because we were only restricting ourselves to deal with the contractor commercially and depend on his capability to give us the documentation that we feel that it is okay with. And that's how we are living the world since last 7 years. And this is just an example that I shared with you, but it is applicable to every and each system that you own. And who is going to create the plan? You can't outsource a person as a contractor to create a plan for you. Maybe you can help, you can take help in building the plan, but it is your involvement as a user to have that plan, and the content of the plan, the depth of the plan must be decided by you. But it looks very theoretical that what is this program, what is this plan? Yeah, we have a very, very reliable contractor who has been doing this business since last 30 years. I think we should not be worried about it. We have got a very detailed documentation, but understand what you are going to get. understand the documentation that you are going to get even. What codes practices that contract is following it. Because this is a way that you are able to ensure the performance of the system in that life cycle of the system. Doesn't matter you invest heavily in the capex during the system purchase or capital purchase, but unless until you maintain that well in your presence, this has no meaning to the investment. So have a plan, very clearly plan, that you can understand very clearly. Have a regular practice of inspection. Now there is a difference between testing and inspection. Be clear about it. There are different words altogether. Inspection could be only visual, that from a sitting or standing on floor, you just take what look that you're going to have. But have the practice of regular inspection, because that will open up your lot of gaps, and it will also ensure your healthiness of the systems. It need not to be recorded, but it has to be part of your plan. It will come from where? It will come from the plan. What is my inspection requirement? Which are the area that I'm going to be inspecting about it? My favorite topic is again housekeeping. I give lot of importance on housekeeping. And housekeeping has a very detailed meaning when it comes to fire and life safety. I mean, for anything, for any system that you own, for a building that you have, unless until you have a very clear-cut policy of housekeeping, you'll not be able to understand and maintain your facility well. And lastly, training, which we are going to take it up next week. Sorry. This is very important element or a piece for organization to adhere to. And just not because that I like the training as a exercise, how this training as an element will help organization in a bigger way is the one that we need to understand. It's not a just ritual that you follow and get the best trainer in the industry, pay him whatever he charges, and then give a nice feedback, and then we are back to square. And that is how the life cycle goes. Of course, training doesn't last long. It is like a medicine that you have. It will have a very short term or a medium impact. It will not have long term impact. Let me tell you the darker side of the coin also. But then you cannot end the response, or you cannot end the process of not having a training. Then your message is that you should have a recurring. If the impact is going to be short term, then have short term repeated training. If the impact is going to be medium, have medium sized training models frequently. And that's how you need to design a training plan for your organization based on your appetite, based on your capacity building, based on your capability that you want to have in the organization. And that's how it is going to help and become your operation and maintenance plan. Yeah. Any question till now? Please ask for it again. I am going to insist again and again. So do not hesitate. Do not shy away in raising the hand in case you are not clear about any piece as such. Yeah. Let's talk about the housekeeping as a piece which is very important for our organization, as I mentioned to you, because this has impact on many systems, and specifically fire and life safety, it is going to impact higher. Most of the people are fascinated to consider the housekeeping is just like a ancillary tool, that just to have a look and feel of the organization, I need to maintain the housekeeping, but not. Housekeeping will reduce your chances of fire to a great extent. Housekeeping will also impact a greater way in evacuation. Housekeeping also will reduce a risk in terms of storage safety. So there are many ways that housekeeping can be applied to your organization, so that your system can be well maintained and you can reduce the risk. Now, if you're a manufacturing plant as such, then maybe you have a lot of combustible materials in and around. So how do you separate, how do you segregate those materials or combustible materials specifically, so that it doesn't get next to the ignition sources? Maybe you got some flammable materials. So how do you store those flammable materials? What are the containers that you are going to use to store those flammable materials? Do you have a MSGS data sheet, material safety data sheets, that are going to be placed next to the storing materials? How we are going to classifying that material? Are they labeled clearly? Are they visible clearly? That is what your part of your housekeeping which is going to come in play. There are many areas where you need to also alert people so that they understand that this is the hazardous material or hazardous area. So signages, notification, not like you take the printout and stick it on the door, this is an hazardous area, and you expect people to follow. No, it's not going to work that way. So that is what is housekeeping is all about. So housekeeping has a deeper meaning. It's not just like you clear your dust and keep the area behind the scene and you expect the housekeeping is going to be housekeeping. No, this is what your segregation, separation, visibility, appearance, all matters. How we are going to monitoring it. There are waste control. Waste control is again a very, very important element as a part of housekeeping. How you are going to be disposing the waste material, how they are going to be not associated with the finished good material. What is the method of taking the waste out from your facility, whether it is a safe process or not, how people are going to use that process. So again, this is part of your housekeeping. Cleaning the equipment or areas definitely is the prime activity, and it is not only the furniture, fixtures, equipment that needs to be cleaned. Even your smoke detectors, even your sprinklers, even your hydrant walls. Now you must have seen a lot of hydrant walls in the vegetation area, right? Again, part of housekeeping, because that's a part of your garden management. You have to ensure that the hydrant is visible, accessible, operable, and you are able to maintain that through housekeeping only. There are many fire cabinet doors which are glass broken, which does not have sign. Part of housekeeping. Paint gone for many pipes. Of course, that is part of maintenance, but again, housekeeping is the one that we should get an alert to notice those changes. There are many facilities which are 24 hours working. So how we are going to operate that after the office working hours or after the closed hours? Again, part of housekeeping. How many people are doing it? Otherwise, you see a lot of my favorite area is your electrical LT panel rooms, been mostly used by electrical staffers or maintenance guys or housekeeping guys, because they don't unfortunately get the dedicated space to change their clothes or keep their clothes or keep their belongings, and they are responsible only for electrical, so they consider LT panel is my office area. And it's a fact. You can see a lot of LT panels being used also as their storages. Their clothes are there, their polythene bags are there, their handbags are being kept there. There are a lot of even paper carton boxes unused been stored in the LT panel because of the space constraint. So again, it's a housekeeping issue. So there are many areas where you need to see that housekeeping plays a very, very important, responsible role in the facility that you have. Now, when it comes to manual that we discussed, what are the important parameters that you need to include in your uh, in your manual as such? So let's understand quickly what are the ingredients of O&M manual in just brief. The first part is basically design, and I've given little elaborate on what are the content that you need to ask, what are the documentation you should ask. So policy statement also is the one that also we should be part of your O&M manual. What is your EHS policy? What is your safety policy? It should start from there. It should come from the top management sign, and that's a prime document of your O&M manual, because spirit will come from there. The policy then defines your rules and regulations in the facility. Specification, what specifications are you following it up in the entire project? And specifically fire security, it is important that the user should know what was planned before. And in a larger organization, this problem is higher because they have a different department to look after these systems. Maybe the design team is different, who is only engaged in designing stage. Maybe project team is only involved during construction until handing over stage. And then the maintenance teams are different. Then they take over from the project department, and that's how the gap starts. The maintenance guy do not know what was planned, what is the specification of it, because it's a different department, it's a different team altogether. But if you have right documents, strategy, if you have a right system followed, it will come by default. So specification should be part of your ingredient of your O&M manual. AutoCAD design layouts, as-built layouts, shop drawings, approved, sign off, very important. And why AutoCAD are important drawing, and specifically in today's world? Because you will have anyway system expansion, renovation done frequently. So how do you manage those expansion and renovation? Unless until you have AutoCAD layout, you'll not be able to design it well. Then you'll compromise. You'll ask only contractor, okay, lay the pipe here, start the cable from there, add the camera there, add the hydrant hose reel there, and that's about it. And you have no plan because it's not reflected in the drawing. Because not reflected because you don't have drawing, base drawings. So it is important that O&M manual should have this thing. If you are doing a lot of risk assessment in between, any specific exercise that you are doing, qualitative, quantitative, maybe HAZOP, HAZID, let it come as a O&M manual. It becomes a document, for a reference document for you. What are the active passive system that you have? Let the list come in there. There are many areas where you have fire sealant. Very specific example I'll tell you. Because just because they don't have a documentation clarity, they said, yeah, there is 3 years back we have done some fire sealing for the shart, but we don't know what material they have used. We don't know what is the rating that material that been used. Was it listed or approved? I don't know. Contractor was awarded the job. He has finished it well. Now finish wise, I look good, but records is not maintained. Just because you don't have record, you are not able to authenticate that fire sealant is proven. Maybe my next phase of replacement will come where we don't know. Till it gets broken, till it's visually damaged, you'll keep on living with the same system, isn't it? So if you know the life of the system well in the form of this documentation, then you know the predictive maintenance. How your testing schedules, how your maintenance schedule has been planned based on the OEM practicing guideline. Maybe OEM has got their own guidelines to maintain the systems. Let it come as a manual. You follow on top of it. If they are saying quarterly, no problem. You can always add on as a monthly. But the OEM practices should be included in the OEM manual. What is the plan? way of your doing it, what is the testing requirement, what is inspection requirement, what is the maintenance requirement for those specific equipment as such. Then specifically your evacuation plan, exit plans, it's very important that should be included as a part of O&M manual. If it is staggered, then the maintenance team will not be able to identify, because if there's an emergency plan which is to be designed, then the input will come from O&M manual. You don't have to look for various sources to get those document and authenticate and then validate and this. So it becomes one kind of a source document for you to refer and implement. What are your communication system that you're following? What are your prevention and security plans? How many people you want to deploy? What is their roles and responsibilities? How these people will be assigned? What are their SOPs, standard operating procedures that we are going to give? Maybe fire wardens will have different responsibilities. Maybe fire marshal will have different responsibilities. So how we are defining that will be again part of your O&M manual. What are the test certificate that you're going to have, whether it's UL listed or ISI approved or FM approved? So how do you ensure that it is there? So certificates, maybe NOCs of your statutory bodies, again, policy document, regulation document, renewal documents, compliance document, everything should be part of your O&M manual as a part of operational requirement. Yeah, or design requirement. And then of course operational requirement, you can have many documents like your maintenance record, your work permits that you're going to follow at your site, what is the template that you're going to have work permits, what is the direction that you're going to follow, how we are going to issue that work permits, what are the records that you're going to have. Maybe you have large facility where you need to monitor even near miss, and near miss is the one that you need to ensure that it is recorded, captured at organizational level. You can't ignore that. Of course, you need to maintain the accidental history as such for investigation analysis report and stuff like that. But even near miss, you cannot miss. Again, it's operational record requirement that you need to follow. What are your testing acceptance tests that you have followed? What time it was tested? Who had witnessed that test? Was it been signed off by them? Again, it's part of your operational requirement as such. Feedback, any specific feedback that you got from people, or maybe you got a lot of big organization where you expect people to give suggestion. I mean, you can see specifically large corporate, I see a box where you expect people to give suggestion box, right? Or see something, say something, right? So where do you record those suggestions? And it comes to safety and security. It should get captured in your operational manual in the form of operational requirement, because then you are able to act on those suggestions, and then that's how your NOCs or non-compliances will be mitigated. Any false alarm that you are going to observe in the fire alarm systems, make sure that again it is part of your O&M manual, where you are able to track those system performance also in terms of verification. If you are doing any mock drill specifically periodically, mock drill records also should be part of your operational. And that's how the third, which is training requirement, which I mentioned, wherein you are exclusively monitoring the training attributes. How frequently are you doing the training programs? To how many people you are doing it? What are the deliverables are you expecting, or you got those deliverables? What is the duration? What are the content you have covered? What is the feedback that you have got? If you have done a mock drill, how much time it took for you people to evacuate it? What is a debrief report? What is the missing action points that you learn from those mock drills? Any tabletop exercise you have done, then what is the takeaway of it? So there are many and many parameters which you can keep discussing on and on. I think this time is going to be constrained here, so to God, but I want to restrict and give a concept here that this is a very, very detailed document. as detailed you can do, it will help you in terms of building your life cycle well. You're able to monitor that system well, and that is the only way that you can maintain those uh, through the form of documents. Yeah. NAPA 25 is the sole resource for water-based system which you can take help. In India, exclusively, there is no equivalent code available, unfortunately. Maybe sooner or later they will establish, but no matter, I mean, it doesn't matter. You can always follow best practice, and NAPA 25 is exclusively and exclusive on water-based system. That means your underground piping, your water sprinkler system, hydrant system, spray system, foam sprinkler system, water mist systems, not gas separation system. See, so these are the system that you can uh, take the help and use the best practices for maintenance systems. And I want to bring to your notice one important clause that has been highlighted here is that it is the owner responsibility to maintain the sprinkler system in good operating condition. It's not about sprinkler, it is for any system. But this is exclusively I want to highlight here because I have insisted n number of times in my previous session that you cannot shy away from the responsibility that you are the owner of the system. Doesn't matter you have a reputed contractor, you have got a highly skilled resources as in the form of contractors or AMC contractors, but it is you are the resource. You are the owner. You are liable for any eventualities that may occur. Statutory, ethically, both. And that's the reason it is important that you are engaged, you are continuously uh, doing activities together with the contractor in maintaining the system. And problem only comes when you have a large organization where you have different team altogether. Like as I mentioned to you, you have design team differently, you have project manager differently, and then takeover, after takeover happens, the maintenance team takes over. Then you have a lot of surprises seen at the by maintenance team because there is a lot of gaps. There is no single person who is witnessing or reviewing the entire fire and life safety aspect. Like example I wanted to give you that maybe you have got area which is not sprinklered. Now maintenance guys have actually reported it that this cabin was not there in the shop drawings. It was modified at the later stage, but just because there is a partition in between, the sprinkler was not given. And it happens at many places. But it is noticed by whom? By maintenance team. But if you still keep continuing the maintenance system as is, then there is a gap. It is not fulfilling the obligations. So you need to go back to your design team, get it validated, get it executed, get it commissioned, including the operation and maintenance manual, and you again take over. That's the reason this is a cycle. I can tell you simple example. In fact, it's funny. It's funny incidents because I have been I'm going to one of the clinic here in local diabetic clinic, which is on the second floor, since last probably 2.5 years. I don't go regularly, but maybe 6 to 1 year time I usually go there. And I have a bad habit to look at always on the top what the system, this system is really there existing or functional operation or not. And I've been watching this since last 2.5 and just last month I visited and I have observed the same scene that the sprinkler, which is on the entire second floor area protecting that clinic, and which is not very small, which is not very big, it is a medium size kind of a probably 3,000 square feet area could be. Sprinklers are protected. The cap is existing since last 2.5 years and is still there. And I met the doctor and I told her that, okay, I am a fire and life safety consultant and I have a suggestion that please remove these caps on the sprinklers. She was astonished to know what is sprinkler and what is the cap all about. I said, look at the orange cap, which is fitted along with the sprinkler, and it is intended during testing. That means during your commissioning stage or testing stage, installation stage, you are giving that cap, but the moment you take out the system, you remove the cap. If you don't remove the cap, the sprinkler will not activate. That sprinkler will not come into operation. It is a dead fish. It is like a dead sprinkler. Although you have a sprinkler system, but it is not going to come in play because you have a cap. Still it is there. So it's a owner responsibility. She is the owner of that clinic, and she should have taken an interest immediately the moment she heard from me saying that, okay, guys, just remove all the sprinkler. And you can see only hardly accidentally removed sprinklers caps have been removed. It should be the other way around. I can understand that accidentally if the cap is there, one or two sprinklers, you can always notice it and you can remove it. But here, maybe I would look at the other way. Accidentally they have removed the caps, assumingly that maybe look will be good or bad, whatever it is. I don't know what is the criteria of removing the caps, but that's how the situation is. Very simple example, but this is the irony of it. Detectors also requires a cap during commissioning only because it should not come into operation if it is in under commissioning stage. But you forget to remove, and maintenance team take course as is. Maintenance team do not know what is this cap all about, whether it's to remove or not, and they are happy maintaining the system on record, forgetting the caps. So likewise, there are many examples. I think day is going to be not adequate to talk about all this maintenance requirement, but this is what we have to learn from all the cases here. Let me just have for a change a question for you. This is a question I want to ask you. Hangers, braces, pipe hangers support shall be inspected from the floor, and this is NFPA 25 requirement. You can guess in case you do not have adequacy knowledge on NFPA 25. Doesn't matter. I want to test your general knowledge here. So use your guess and answer a quick one. What do you think is a relevant one? Is it going monthly, annually, 6 monthly? And second question, pipe fittings installed in concealed spaces such as above suspended ceilings requires whether you really inspect. So second question, I think it is a typo error. I want to highlight here. Pipe and fitting installed in concealed spaces such as above suspended requires inspection. So by people have just guessed it without knowing the correct question, which is glad. But then question is now people have started changing the answer. So it's require inspection. What it means is inspection. Second question. Okay, whether it's true or false. Okay. So I just wanted to give you 10 more seconds. Fundamental questions, but you will see that NFPA 20 is an amazing source of getting your clarity on water-based firefighting system. So everything is okay. Quickly, guys, there are still people left out thinking what to do. No reverse marking, just guess it and hit it the button that you like it. Okay. Done. One, two, three, four, five. Okay, end poll. I'm just ending the poll and sharing the results here, and surprisingly the results were as expected. The first one, hangers versus pipe hanger support shall be inspected from floor, has to be annually, not monthly. Okay, so only 27% people said correct answer. So it has to be annual inspection as a best practice by NFPA 25, and I'm sure it is the best practice throughout the world. including India as well, right? Second question, and definitely I was expecting the answer in a reverse way. You don't need to inspect the area that you cannot access it, or area which is concealed spaces, especially pipe fittings, especially sprinkler systems, and that is all okay. That is all acceptable in the eyes of courts. You don't expect to take the break ceilings, concealed spaces, or inaccessible. That is all right. Okay. So this is not me who is saying, it is the NFPA 25 saying it is absolutely okay that if you don't inspect those areas which is inaccessible, which is difficult to go, or specifically concealed spaces. Concealed means above false ceiling areas or which you cannot see it. It is absolutely fine because it is assumed that the the system performance is checked. As long as you are monitoring it at the ground level, at the performance level, it is absolutely fine. You don't need to access it. So very, very important, but simple thing, but I think it will give you a lot of clarity how the courses are going to help you to clarify your doubts and get your clarity in maintaining the system. I think the other day, Mr. Reddy asked the question, how many detectors should you uh, take into maintenance? Actually, ideally, you're supposed to test every detectors, but it is your schedules. If you have 1,000 detectors in your facility, you schedule it every month. I'm going to check 100, which is fine. You don't expect that all 1,000 detectors to be checked every month. So it is you who are going to decide it. But as long as you are meeting the annual requirement of checking 1,000 detectors, which is fine. Yeah. There are requirements. Again, this is the question that I wanted to highlight here or read here for you, which is there in the NFPA 25, wherein says how many sprinklers must be removed from a system for testing. When you have age-old system, now what NFPA 25 says that every 20 years, either you replace or test your system, sprinkler systems. Fire alarm, every 15 years, you test or replace your system. This is what NFPA 25 says. OEM can have their own recommendation, which you can supersede based on OEM requirement, because ultimately OEM the one who is the overriding rules for your manufacturing practices. Because if OEM is not going to give you warranty after 10 years, then there is no point in taking the system to 15 years, right? Okay, so you should plan replacement after 10 years based on OEM guideline. But what NFPA 25 says, for fire alarm 15 years and for sprinkler 20 years. So what it says that when you have this system, how many sprinklers you are going to take it out for testing? What it says that section 5312 requires only 1% or not less than 4 to be removed and submitted to a testing laboratory for evaluation. So you take the sprinklers out, only 1%. If suppose you have got 400 upright sprinklers, you take 4 sprinklers out and test it. If you have got 500 pendant sprinklers, you take 5 out and test it to send it to third-party laboratory and test. If one fails out of 4, if one fails out of 5, you replace all 400. Simple, clear. But that is what NFPA 25 says. When replacing a sprinklers in a system, is it necessary to perform a hydro test? Like you have a fire accident, you have activated say 20 sprinklers, you remove 20, you change and replace this 20 with new 20. Question may come, do you still need to hydro test it? So there is no clear-cut answer which neither NFPA 13 gives nor NFPA 25 gives. It is up to your jurisdiction. But if you are modifying the pipes, hydro test may not be required. But if it is activated in a fire case, ideally it has to be hydro tested because it might have some deterioration of metallic properties in case of fire specifically. So it is all subjective. It is your prerogative to decide what to do on this. Then again, third question, you can see in the pump house, you can the base plate on the there is always the gland packing which is always leaking. So question might come for many people that okay, this pump is giving leakages because it is always dropping the water from the gland packing, whether it is allowed, is the best practice. Yes, it is the best practice. Now what it says that 1 drop per second, to that extent they are going, it is acceptable. Never adjust packing because it is healthy practice to have leaking also, but it should be leaking not like a complete continuous power out of it from the pump that you are going to have. So this is all about your inspection, visual inspection, that will be part of your operation and maintenance practices. Now these are the fundamental thing that engineers should have in their mind, and codes with will give the clarity in terms of how the system will be monitored. Now in terms of sprinkler, of course, is a very very interesting topic. We can go and go on talking about it, but basic fundamental I can tell you, anything that sprinkler half filled one, replace it out. If the deflector is deflected or turn out, replace it out. If your concealed sprinklers, the cover plate is broken, replace it out. If it is a corroded, replace the sprinklers. If it is a painted one, replace the sprinklers, because you are not supposed to paint the sprinklers. So these are all basic understanding or care and maintenance, which is again there in NAPA 25. Even in local IS 15015 also has got basic maintenance requirement given. Even if you follow that, it should be good beginning. But if you want to really go deeper, maintain your system, which is really big in size, take the help of NAPA 25. You will have a lot of answers how to maintain those systems. But all I can say is that there are incidences globally, and NAPA, it's not me, NAPA saying is that there is a lack of maintenance, which is a key, which is affecting the performance of the system. Even if you see the largest reason, shut off, system start off, that means you close the wall itself on the sprinkler system, 59% people. And I can tell you, in most of the metros where you see a system which is in a high-rise building for a lot of multiple occupants, most of the system, and this 59% will be applicable to those occupancies where you expect the wall itself is kept closed and wall is not monitored by fire alarm system. So in the case of fire, your sprinkler system will not discharge water because it is closed manually. Again, it is part of lack of maintenance practices. So if you add it up together, lack of maintenance 10% and shut off wall 69%, that's a most significant reason or factor that will affect your sprinkler system performance. Rest is all okay. Components, equipment damage, manual intervention, this is all done. But this is very, very important reason. So the other reason, closed wall, of course, is one, damaged components, occupancy change. Like you all of a sudden, it was accountant office cabin, all of a sudden you decided to convert into storeroom and you started storing their housekeeping liquids and this. So it cannot be the same hazard. Occupancy has been changed. Or you converted that into a server room. Occupancy change. You cannot have the same sprinkler there. So this is how we need to see that, how we are going to maintain, measure that in O&M phase. Building renovations, shutdown of systems, water supply changes. So there are many parameters which will affect the systems. In terms of security, again, the same thing. How your cameras are being maintained that way. Whether any layout is in change, that needs change in angle. What was the duration that you had anticipated for recording? How much is it going to give you now? Whether it is adequate or not. What is your access control requirement? What is the cabling? Whether it is deteriorated or not. So there are many parameters in terms of security systems, and I can tell you there are incidences globally where just because the security system is not maintained because of the commercial aspect of it, they suffer a lot than what they would have spent on the maintenance contract. So it is important that the deteriorating of wires, malfunction of alarm systems, or maybe your access control not in functional, so that you can't track the movements inside, you'll not be able to catch the thief. And when any incidences happen, you don't know who was there inside, who came in, and who went out, because your access control was deficient, because the wiring fault, because you didn't maintain it, or your camera was not well positioned. Maybe there was a barrier in between. So there are many practical reasons where operation and maintenance team need to be vigilant and ensuring that your system is well. I'm sorry I'm taking a lot of time today, but I'll just wrap it up with this last note with the command control center, and then we can conclude the session. But we already covered in, I think, 2 weeks before, the command control center, how this is going to be important phase as a part of your operation mentor strategy. Because if you have a competent people, if you have combined fire and security combined command center, that means you need to have a competent resources, you need to have right space, you need to have right communication method. So all these things is part of your strategy. So maintenance team have to ensure that this is available for them to rescue, respond, communicate, take actions, because otherwise it could be a failure and you're not able to manage this thing. So with this, I will like to leave the questions for the rest of the week. What's your maintenance program? Revisit your plan, see what is the change that is required, what is your involvement so far. Now after this session, did it open your mind and you see that no, my involvement was less high or needs change? And then also you look at it, how efficient are you able to manage your program well so far? So I'm going to leave these questions to retrospect yourself, and I would like to hear from some of you in case you find any answer or your experiences in these 3 questions or awakening question that I say, and definitely we can look forward. Any questions till now? I'm running out of time, but I think it was really interesting session that we had, and I wanted to highlight this point better. What is the difference between record and document? So it's the same thing what I mentioned. Record keeping and bookkeeping, or documentation requires the same thing. So we'll talk about it next week session. What are the record and documentation requirement as a part of facility owner that you should have as a part of entire system or assets. So if there are no questions, no hands raised, I think we are good to go. Let's conclude the session with, as usual, our national anthem. Thank you. See you next week, 11:30 a.m. Sunday. Please bring in your more colleagues and friends and look forward to see you. Till that time, take care, stay happy.